Happy, what day are we? It is Happy Wednesday today. See, I get so excited about hanging out with everybody on the days when we get to do that I just completely forget what day it is. So, what are we doing today? I promised you no-churn ice cream, so no-churn ice cream it is. Now just let me get things adjusted here a little bit so that I'm looking at you instead of above you. And hopefully today we're going to have an even better picture of what's happening down here on the counter because I have a new camera that has a much better picture on it. So, ice cream that you don't have to churn. And it's not going to get all ice crystally, and so how on earth are we going to do that? Well, we need a few things. First thing we need is something to do whipped cream in. Second thing we need is a hand mixer and the beaters for that hand mixer. So those are going to show up here right away. What else do we need? Well, we're going to need a big glass bowl to put everything in, and we're going to need a glass cake pan. So we'll just grab that from the bottom of the oven. And here I am making messes again, or making noise again. So we're going to get a little bit noisy this morning, but it's going to be worth it. Okay, so what on earth are we doing? Let's take a look at our counter and we'll get this all figured out. Okay. Now, this is another one. Have you guys noticed that typically when I do something, I do it so that you can adjust it. And it isn't just because I look for those recipes. It's because I believe that any recipe should be like that. If it's something that you are going to be doing for your family and you want to make it a little bit sweeter or a little bit more savory or a little bit whatever it is that you want to make it more of or less of, you should be able to do that. So, now, just get what we need happening here. Okay, check out how clear this is. You see that? There. So this is for you guys so that you can see this a little bit better and see what is happening in the kitchen a little more. Okay, let's just change this a wee bit. Okay. Now, the first thing we need is 2 cups of whipping cream. And we're going to make whipped cream out of this, but we are not adding sweetener, and we are not adding, oh my goodness, cream of tartar. And the reason that we are not adding that is because, now this is 250 milliliters, no it isn't, it's 500 milliliters of whipping cream. And I'm going to see if I can get this a little further away from the mic because we have to turn this on and whip it. So it only takes a couple of minutes. Oh, thank you, Joe. Now, you know, I have to give credit where credit is due. The new camera that's giving you guys a great picture to look at when we're working together here is all Dell because he got it for me yesterday and I'm very grateful for that. Okay, let's turn this on high. We'll make a little bit of extra noise, but it'll be done a little bit quicker. So just beat this until it's stiff. That's all you need to do, and then we're just going to set it aside. Now, I am going to add this to one package, a 250 gram or 8 ounce package of cream cheese, and this is almost whipped already. You know, if you go too far with whipping cream when you're whipping it, you end up with butter instead of whipped cream. So you want to watch that if it's not something that you're used to doing. So when the cream can hold its shape, it'll hold peaks. So when you move the beaters around, I will show you in a second here. Okay, now let's take a quick look at this, and you can see looking in here that it's still all liquidy. Okay, so let's turn this up again. Now the one thing that we are going to add in here is a little splash of vanilla. So about 1 teaspoon and a half, and again, more or less depending on how your family likes it. Okay. Try to get this vanilla in here. Okay, now we are done with that. Now, when you look at this whipped cream, you can see that it's holding its form. It's not pouring around in the jug. So that's what you want. Just like that. Take this off. Now, step 2. Oh, step 2 does not involve the burner today. Now, step 2 involves not 1, but 2 packages of raspberry jello. And we are going to add that right into the cream cheese mixture. Well, it isn't a mixture yet, it will be in a second. Now this is very similar to the fluff that I made before. The difference is we're heavier on the whipping cream this time, and we're a little bit heavier. We're using 2 packages of jello instead of 1. This is going to give it a more intense flavor, and that's important because if you've ever noticed, good morning, Mom, I'm glad to see you here. If you've ever noticed, if you have a cold cup of tea, the scent from that tea isn't nearly as strong as a hot cup of tea. If you have something that you've been simmering on the stove, that scent will fill the house. But if it's something that's been sitting in the fridge and you set it out on the counter for half an hour, the scent isn't there. So you need the scent and the flavor to be a little more intense when you are making it into an ice cream. So we are just going to whip this up. We want this all nice and light and fluffy. Oh. Let's make a little bit more noise here so we can get this done quickly. Oh. Now you want this really smooth. Don't leave any lumps in this. Quality control. Okay, so that should be pretty close to good enough. Now, it is just this easy. Pardon me. Now, I need, right there. I had it right there. I need something to add the whipping cream, or the whipped cream, into our raspberry fluff. Now, we're going to beat this again. And get everything all incorporated. You want it to be nice and smooth. Now, when you're doing this at home, if you want to do it in a stand mixer rather than standing here, you can definitely do that. And then you can walk away, and I'm just going to turn this a little bit more this way so that you guys are hanging out with me. Now that we have this in here, for the first minute or so, we're going to turn this on. This just mixes it a little better, a little more thoroughly. And you're not going to hurt the whipped cream. We're not going to over whip it when we are adding it to something like this. Although, what you gain in speed, sometimes you can lose in airiness. Yeah, that's a good word. Okay. Get this mostly beaten up here, and then we'll finish it with a spoon so that we can talk. Okay. There we go. We can do the rest of this. Ah! You know what's going to happen next, right? It's a must. You just have to. And since I don't have to share, I get to do both of them. So there's that. And now we're just going to finish mixing this. Now we want this thoroughly mixed because we are going to put this in a cake pan. Now if you have a cookie dough scoop, now I strongly recommend that whatever scoop you use, it has, okay, I'm going to use some really technical things. You know the spring-loaded squeezy scoops that put the ice cream out for you, or the cookie dough, or whatever it is you're looking or using? That's what you want. That spring-loaded little gizmo in the center is what's going to help you get this soft ice cream out. Now, lots of people have told me that if they have leftover whipped cream, they will add that to, or they'll use a scoop and they'll put it on parchment paper in the freezer. And then when they need it, they have frozen whipped cream. So, guess where this idea came from? Now, is the flavor of this intense enough? And if it isn't, you can add another package of raspberry Jell-O. You can add more vanilla. I like it just the way it is. Now, it would be good with more raspberry Jell-O. You know, I think one more package of raspberry Jell-O would be a good thing in here, especially if you are serving this to kids. If you, there we go. Just get that off, get rid of the evidence. If you are serving this to adults and you want something that's nice and light and you don't want the flavor too intense, then this is just perfect. But if you are feeding it to children, or you want it to be something more exciting, then you can use 3 or 4 or however many boxes of Jell-O you want, and you can add the Jell-O in at any time. So we're going to leave this like this today, and we are going to line a cake pan with parchment paper. Now, turn the parchment paper curl side down, and that way it doesn't curl up on you so much. Give it a bit of a fold. And these are not like putting something in the oven. They're not going to grow. They're not going to shrink. They're just going to sit where they are. So they can be as close together as you want them to be. And this is my cookie scoop. See my little springy thing, my action figure. Okay, that's as close as I get to an action figure. And so you take a scoop, and let's see if we can get this over here where you can see it a little more. We'll turn this a little bit. Just getting this new camera adjusted. Okay. Now this is soft, so you have to squeeze it a few times to get this out of here. But just put them in a row as close as you like. You'll be able to break them apart later. And then put them in the freezer. And once they are frozen, you will be able to drop them into a Ziploc bag so you have pre-scooped ice cream. Now, if you have a bigger scoop than this and you want to do bigger scoops, knock yourself out. If you want to add an ounce or two of vodka to this recipe so that it doesn't freeze quite as hard, you can do that too. But because we're doing this in scoops in the ice cream, or in the freezer, I mean, I didn't think that that was terribly necessary, but there are all kinds of things that you can do. What goes well with raspberries? Do you want to add some fresh raspberries into this? Okay, there we go. Okay, now, let's do this one other way so that you can see. I have 2 spoons. And you can just use the 2 spoons together, and that falls right onto the sheet. So you just shape them with the 2nd spoon, or you can just put blobs down too. Whatever works for you. You take a. So this does not have to be perfect. How pretty do you want it? For your guests, or is it just for you? Now, I don't recommend trying to use any kind of a mold unless you have enough. If you're making like ice cream sandwiches and you want to use a mold, but know that once you've used the mold, you need to leave it in there until it freezes, because it's not going to come out easily until it's frozen. It's just going to get all messy. But okay, now, there is a name for this, and it is just escaping me right now, using 2 spoons like this. Now you can see, looking in the pan, that these ones kind of look more like scoops of ice cream. So if that's what you're going for, that's what you're going to want to do. Do this on a cookie sheet, if you like, and that way you can maybe get the whole batch done at once. Make the scoops bigger, make them smaller, do whatever it is that you want to do with them, because once they are done, they come out of the freezer. If I can get my hands on this. Looking just like this. So when you want to put them away in a Ziploc bag, you have little ice cream balls to put away. And it really is just that easy. Now I want to talk to you about an article that I read this week, since we still have a few minutes left. Oh, and did you bring a cup of coffee with you? Is it too late in the day where you are for a hot steaming cup of regular coffee? If it is, then drink decaf. Buttered rum. Sugar-free sweetener in my coffee this morning. I read an article this week that talked about the dangers of doing keto long term. And I love the very first one. So here is one of the biggest dangers of doing keto long term. If you stop doing keto, you will regain the weight that you've lost. Let's think about that for just a minute. If you start eating in a healthy way that gives your body permission to shed the weight that it shouldn't be carrying, and you do that long term and your body gets healthy, whoops, let's see if we can't. There we go. Now, why did that happen? That's interesting. Let's see if we can't fix this. There we go. We fixed it. Almost we fixed it. I don't just know how that happened, but there we are. Anyway, so you start eating in a way that promotes health. And then, for whatever reason, you go back to the way that you were eating before that made you fat and sick. Why would you think for 1 second that if you go back to the way that you were eating, the way that caused your high blood pressure, the way that caused your heart attack or your stroke or your type 2 diabetes, the type of eating that caused your early onset Alzheimer's that you've managed to reverse, why would you think it isn't going to happen again? If you have a vial of poison and you put 1 drop in your food every day, and it doesn't kill you, but it makes you sick, and then one day somebody says, you know, you should not be putting that drop of poison in your food. That's what's making you sick. So you stop. And you feel so much better. And you have more energy and you have a better outlook and your stomach is healthy and you have the energy to move, so you start losing weight and life is good. And then one day you think, you know, this is all well and good, but that poison, it wasn't so bad, was it? So you start putting a drop in your food again. Do you really think that that poison is not going to make you sick again? That's what it is. So if you start doing keto and you do it long term and you have a whole bunch of health benefits from it, and then you stop doing keto, you're going to lose those health benefits. And that's a danger? Okay, well, you know what? I got nothing. I got nothing. You just cannot argue with that type of logic or lack of logic. So if you are doing keto and you are worried about stopping and regaining your weight, I'm going to tell you, you don't start keto to do it for 6 months, because I agree with them. If you stop, you will regain the weight. Absolutely no doubt about it. It's a lifestyle. It's what you do to make you better for you. It's what you do to make you healthier and more energetic and more capable so that you can do the things that you want to do with your family. And it doesn't mean that you have to give up everything that you like in life, because another thing that they say makes keto not good long term is it's too restrictive. It's not sustainable because it's too restrictive. Because you have to give up things like, I don't know, ice cream. No, you don't. No, you don't. So those people who are saying you shouldn't do this long term because it's too restrictive and when you quit you're going to gain the weight back, you know what? You can listen to your body, or you can listen to these people who would much rather that you keep buying their processed food and their medications and I know I'm sounding like a bit of a conspiracy theorist here, but realistically, when you do something for your health, that means you buy less medication and you buy less packaged food, you're not doing anything good for the processed food industry or the pharmaceutical industry. So they would much rather that you keep buying the medications that will not reverse your conditions, but it will manage it. I'm happier with mine being reversed. And that doesn't mean that keto is going to fix everything, because if you have a bad hip or a bad knee or a bad shoulder and there's been damage done that needs to be repaired, or a joint that needs to be replaced, I will promise you that keto can make a huge difference in the amount of inflammation that you deal with until the time comes for it to be replaced. And I know there's somebody listening this morning that absolutely shocked the doctor when she showed up 4 years later and said, okay, doc, I think maybe now is time to talk about doing that joint replacement. So, you do you the way you want to do it, but know that there are consequences to the choices that you make. And going 4 years between visits to that clinic, that isn't what most people do. It's 6 months or a year. But keto made it 4. So I am very proud of her. I am going to let you go because it is 10:30, and I know that you guys have a Wednesday to live, and I hope that you do your very best to live your best version of this shining life. I know that's what I'm going to do, and I am at some point this afternoon going to do another live, and I'm going to do some keto relish. And the reason that I'm going to do another one this afternoon is because someone very generously gave me some pickling cucumbers, and they can't wait a few days. They need to be used up. So I'm going to be doing that this afternoon. I will flip this back on, and we'll have a second one today. And so you are welcome to join me, but if you can't make it, spur of the moment, then the video will be there for you to watch. So have you been missing sweet relish while you're doing keto? Well, you don't have to anymore. We're going to make some this afternoon. So join me then, and